Okay, welcome back. Once
To the
again,
Matrix.
we enter the Matrix for the 4,561st time, right?
It's like, yeah. And in the podcast, it's the 46th time.
46, 5,046. There's no time and space,
exactly.
right, Nikolai?
Close enough, yes.
Close enough. So, got a couple doozies for you that were top of mind for a number of different reasons this week. Some were merely just thoughts, and some were based on interactions that I had with other individuals. And I always have a section of notes for whenever I have different interactions or different thoughts. I have the podcast episode notes in the phone, and I'm scrambling stuff down. So the first thing that I want to talk about, because I know you and me have talked about this to the nth degree, and I'm sure there is no nth degree because we could probably talk about it forever. And that is the idea of misalignment. And something particular that I wanted to touch on that I thought maybe some of the listeners could get some clarity on would be, what does it mean to be misaligned with your purpose but still generating revenue, right? Because there's that difference between like, hey, we're misaligned with our soul and spirit, and for some people they're still cranking out cash, right? Why can someone who's misaligned make money and other people that are misaligned, they don't make anything? Does alignment fix money, or does alignment just fix the soul?
Alignment does fix money. Let's first talk about those, let's call them exceptions, and they're not really exceptions to situation where somebody's misaligned and they still in comfortable material life. And comfortable is overstatement, and I'll unpack that. So there are incarnation programs where soul loads and it just literally chooses to have material wealth as a default. So a person is born into a rich family, or let's say born into a poor family, and whatever they touch, like environment just gives them money. And like I've seen many of these examples where like they will just like, doesn't matter what they do, even they don't do it, like Matrix will offer them like some job where they won't need to do anything and they'll get paid obscene amount of money. And it's just, and this is I want to underline this, everything happens energetically first and then shows up in a material world. And this is a great example where, according to all the, let's say, societal standards, that person should be making zero. First of all, I've seen people were like not super bright, right? And they like have obscene amount of cash, and like they were not born into a rich family. It just Matrix constantly creates them for a situation where it's like, here's a mill, here's another mill, here's few more. Just it's part of an incarnation program. The soul designed it that way. And there's a very important side note here. Like, people get frustrated that, why is my life so shitty? I didn't choose to have such life. Okay, your mind and your body hasn't, but a different part of you, which is still you, soul, has. And that's why it's so important and critical to take responsibility and say, I chose this type of life. Yes, it's the part of me that I haven't fully synchronized and connected with, which is my soul and spirit, but I chose it. I chose it. Like the situation Nikolai is in right now, I fully chose it. Like, and now I know it's not the mind and body, because if mind and body would be designing incarnation, it would have designed it differently, because it's optimizing for comfort, fat, and safety, illusionary safety, more of resources, right? So that it never dies. At the end of the day, it dies because it's not about the resources. Like, you cannot take $1 billion with you to the grave. And even though people say that, but they forget that, and they still keep optimizing for wrong metrics. So it's important to say here, okay, I chose this type of incarnation, like the situation you're going through. I chose this, and for whatever reason that I don't fully understand yet, it is important that this life is this way right now. And I will keep repeating the saying from Steve Jobs: we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And sadly and luckily, that is true. Everything I've observed my life, I would go, like old version of me would complain, why am I in this situation? Why this sucks so much? And then I go through that and I was like, wow, I was so lucky that I went through this situation, because if I didn't, this would have not happened. I wouldn't realize that, and etc. And bringing this back to money, there's a moment I was exiting last business that we were literally like an inch away of like walking away with a lot of cash. And last minute, all of that just collapsed, like just like a like house of cards, even though it wasn't house of cards. Like the business was legit, it was functioning, everything was looking great, and it just went to nothing. Well, it was in dentistry, and COVID came in. Guess what closed first? All the dental clinics. So all this rapidly growing massive amount of revenue went to zero in 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
So when I look back at that, like I was standing away from checking out with a lot of cash. Because I was like exiting out of a company. I was willing to sell my stock. There were a bunch of investors interested, and disappeared. When I look back, wow, I'm lucky that I didn't walk out with cash. I would have never. I shouldn't say what would have never. The chance of me having the experience I had over the past 6 years would be really low, because I remember that version of me, the mind ego that was overblown, that knew everything, and if it would be further supported by obscene amount of cash, I wouldn't like not sit and dig through my personality, my inharmonious character traits, and understand how things work on this planet. Like, wouldn't be top of my list. Let's put it that way.
You've just solved for me the riddle of my cash issues. Now I'm like, yeah. Give that version of me a whole bunch of money, and woo, we wouldn't be talking right now. I could tell you that much.
Yeah. And it's funny. Just like around an hour or two ago, we were joking with Maxime, because he still has some leftover. Let's call it like grudges towards Putin. Like Russia as a country has all the necessary resources, like oil, metals, all like physical resources, plus all the human resources, like super bright, like obscene amount of super bright people with amazing education, right? Even after so many left, there's still so like he could have turned that country into a spectacular country, but at the end of the day, everything was like grifted away and stolen and etc. Right? And then by the end of a conversation, we were laughing, and because one thing we realized is people that ended up holding a lot of material resources right now, and it was not as part of their design of their incarnation program where they're supposed to hold those resources. And then I'll talk about those exceptions, right? They're going into a surprise of what's going to be happening with them, because to hold a lot of resources, that means is to be able to hold a lot of energy, to be able to hold and pass through a lot of energy. Your energetic channels have to be harmonized and healed. That means your personality has to be in the next level of harmony. So basically, these resources will start destroying all these people who are holding the resources that were taken, not let's call it harmoniously. So where I'm going with this, by the end of a conversation, we're laughing. Oh, I guess Putin was saving all the people in Russia from this harsh outcome at the end of the day, because they stole all the politicians and him stole all the money, so people don't have them. So at least they will not be killed by overwhelming amount of resources that they cannot support with their energetic structure. So that brings me. So one situation is where Soul has designed the Incarnation program where they're supposed to have money. In some scenario, just easy access to money, but not a lot of money. In some situations, larger amount of money. Like another scenario I've seen is where a soul incarnated on one incarnation and lived a life where it worked really hard, but never got a pay, like fair energetic exchange for that work that was put in, because it was taken by, let's say, the family or the company or whatever. So they were never fairly reimbursed in previous incarnation. So this incarnation, it loads in with a bonus. That's another way where they don't really need to do much. And by the way, that guy was not really doing much and was making 100K a month, was literally like barely lifting a finger. And whichever way he tried to fuck it up, he couldn't. The money was just like like he was telling me the story, like dude, like I'm like screwing up half of the projects. People will still pay me and hire me. It's like, I just don't care anymore. I was like, because at the end of the day, he still wasn't happy. Like the money was there, but he wasn't happy. So he needed to figure out the rest of his life, right? So material resources is not a thing he needed to learn to earn, attract, manage, and etc. So it was just there. So that's the first bucket. People where the soul had it by design. And by the way, the more advanced the souls are in most of the scenarios, the more the avatars would have access to some resources, but not obscene amount of resources, because it then creates more opportunity for growth, more challenges, more opportunities to reflect. Because the challenge with resources in the old version of the world that we're wrapping up with, it really was distracting, and it did not motivate evolution. Let's put it that way. It motivated consumption. So the other big bucket are, let's call people, some who have souls and some who don't have souls. And the ones who have souls sold their soul. So basically signed some kind of contract with the players on this planet who were managing the field that was managing the planet. And we call it Grayfield. And this Grayfield had specific type of values, which is basically scarcity, competition, domination. The core one was all about domination. Who can dominate who? And then you create this concept of scarcity, and like everybody's competing, trying to dominate each other. So those, and once again, everything starts energetically. So hence, since this whole field was programmed and installed as part of operating system on this planet, whoever chose to sell their soul by supporting these values in this field would be supported by this field back, would be promoted by the field. And since the core values of this field was, like, let's call it, if we would summarize it in a single word, domination, what this field did, collected energy from a bunch of people and redistributed energy to people who were willing to promote that type of lifestyle of dominating, competing, scarcity, and etc. So what happened as a result, and a lot of that collection of energy happens through what we know as egregors, or just the different structures, like political party. Like if you start worshiping political party, you're giving away your energy. I'm so Republican, 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 Republican. You give away your energy. Then like Nike brand. Oh, I'm like, Nike is the best shoe, best shoe, best shoe. Not only you pay money into Nike brand, but you also give away your energy. So all these buckets of energy would get collected, and a person with a soul or without a soul, not going to talk about these. I'm talking about the ones with the soul, because the ones without the soul would never probably even make it to this podcast. So they would choose to make a contract with this gray field. And usually it starts with something small. Like it's like you could be like building a business and somebody is like, hey, why don't you, if you close your eyes here and don't really control the quality, or we'll take some contracts from the government, you keep 20%, I got 30, and then 50% we spend on making something real or semi-real, right? It comes in all types of things. So it's like, well, there is really regulation here and that impacts your margin, but we pretend this regulation is not here, so we increase the margin. It starts with that little thing, and that's how somebody sells their soul, per se, or create a contract with this Grayfield, because they want to win, they want to dominate, they want more resources, they feel like everything is scarce. So this field, and if then on top of that they start promoting that way of living. In the past they stop, because right now that Grayfield is gone. So, and I'm coming to the slowly coming to a climax of the story that is exciting for people who haven't sold their soul. They wanted to live square and fair. They wanted to keep their moral compass and etc. So slowly those people will get absorbed, and if on top of that they started promoting, you gotta win, dominate, like there's not enough resources on the planet, we gotta compete, blah blah blah, then that field would give them more energy. So what happens is so loaded in the body that potentially didn't even have much access to the resources, but they were willing to play into the energies of that field. So the field would give them access to a bunch of resources because they became promoters. So they basically became top promoters of MLM pyramid, which was not real. And they would get a lot of resources. So where we're coming with this now, so these people who acquired resources that way, it's not by design of their soul, of their incarnation program, or in other words, what we call destiny. And they haven't really worked on themselves to be able to manage that amount of energy. So now they're coming to, once again, I'm going to use the biblical term. I keep using it in all the previous episodes, Judgment Day. You basically, the auditor, energetic auditor is here. And we're doing credits and debits. And, oh, you have a lot of energy, but none of the incarnation program, you shouldn't have this energy. You haven't done the work on yourself, because by doing work on yourself, by harmonizing ourselves, we're basically expanding ourselves energetically. We're becoming able to allow more energy, or our system supports more energy flowing through us. So now there is a dissonance. You can barely channel any energy through you. You have huge amount of energy, and there is a mismatch, and there will be a lot of very interesting outcomes as a result. Some people that energy will just disappear. The matrix will take it, and that's going to be many scenarios. In some scenarios, that energy requires support of the holder of that energy, and it's going to just start burning them, and people will start losing their mind in one way or another. Like, they might have $1 billion, but a thought will come up that they're going to lose the $1 billion any minute, and it's just going to eat them from inside out, and they just going to go mental, end up in psychiatric facility, and etc. And the spectrum matrix has a very diverse spectrum to balance debit and credit. So we're going to be observing a lot of interesting, entertaining situations. So that's basically another bucket of how someone could have a bunch of resources, but not aligned with their purpose. And in the first bucket as well, if it was pre-designed to you to have resources, you don't have to be aligned. It's just a check mark, and you start playing the game of evolution from that place where you have resources. And then for everyone else, the way it works is, as long as you align with aspects of your purpose, your material existence is very comfortable. So hence you have all the necessary resources. Where another downfall happened, where that didn't fully per se was perceived that it did not work, is because people who were aligned and are having comfortable line, but then absorb the values of the Grayfield or Hollywood society or whatever, where like you're supposed to have a yacht. Somebody's not supposed to have a yacht based on their incarnation program, they're not, but then they decided that's their idea. And the pain started happening from a place of, I don't have something, but you're not supposed to have it. Like, let's say you have a house, you have family, children, everybody's fed, everybody's going to a great school, everything is okay. But then the person, but I don't have a 50-meter yacht, right? So by design, the person is aligned and supposed and has everything they're supposed to have, but they could have adopted some kind of external idea, what we call also kind of infected their mind, because it's possible to infect the mind, because the mind is very, let's call it, it's easier to infect the mind with idea that is not yours, because the challenge with the mind and ego of the mind is that it has a very shallow set of data points. The mind only stores the data from the current life of what has been lived, observed, heard, touched, tasted, and etc. That's the data set. Whereas the soul has the data set from all the lives, and the spirit has even grander data set. That's why we call them super intelligence. And like, as you listen to this, who do you want to trust? The little guy with a few data points, since everybody now more or less understands data sets, given we're in AI world, which is a separate conversation, and or the super intelligence that's seen all your lives, incarnated on this planet many times, incarnated in other parts of the universe, gathered all types of wisdom. And that's why when the soul was designing the incarnation, it designed the incarnation from a place of that super intelligence or wisdom. But the mind goes here, I don't have enough money for the yacht. My life sucks. Why? I didn't choose this life, and it's whining, but it's like this tiny spur of intelligence, if you can call it that way, that is trying to complain about things. And by the way, what I mentioned, the reason it's so important to keep saying, I designed this life, because when you say I, then you start including super intelligence into your definition of I. If you say, I didn't design this life, then you're saying, I am only mind, ego, and the body. And I am not the super intelligence. I am the tiny intelligence. So we've started saying I, and we start taking what we call, in other words, taking full responsibility for our life. I chose this life. We're saying, yes, part of my structure is soul and spirit, the super intelligence. And that's how all these three structures start synchronizing and merging together. And you actually become the super intelligence. And it becomes accessible any second, any moment, in here and now, at any situation and scenario you're facing. So yeah, so basically, as a person gets aligned with their purpose, their material life becomes comfortable. And the way it's designed was the person gets aligned with their social objective. So in our framework, purpose is a multifaceted concept. It's not just a single thing that you came here to do. It's like multiple dimensions that you got to align, and then it becomes this holistic purpose. So one part of this holistic purpose is what we call social objective, which is soul brought here and know-how that has already perfected in other lives. And Matrix is expecting you to give that to people, to society, to express that energy, to express that skill, to express that service, product, whatever it is. By expressing energy, we do something, a service or a product. And when we do that, the matrix and the material matrix gives us back material comfort. And then from this place of material comfort, you are not worried about food, roof over your head. The idea is you desire to evolve, and it's easy to evolve because all that is taken care of. But because there are a bunch of other things got unfolded where people got confused, they haven't aligned with those things, then they start getting surprised why, like, I want to go to evolution now, but like all these things are not checked off in my life. Well, it's because somewhere along the way, a person either hasn't fully aligned with their social objective, or aligned and then got lost in spending the resources that Matrix gave to a person on ideas of the infected mind, of like, I need the yacht and spend, or I need 3 villas, and they buy the villas, and then I don't know, some of them get destroyed, or the location gets bankrupt, or whatever, right? So and then they spend all these resources that were given for them to live this comfortable life and work on their evolution. So it's interesting the way it's designed, social objective, you do that part. And that's, by the way, super easy to a person because the soul already is an expert in that. So you express the energy that you're already an expert in, you get material resources back, so you're comfortable in a material matrix. And then you go into learning. So now that's checked off, you go into learning. So, and that's an indication that, people complain about matrix, the world. Matrix is not against you. It's even designed, that things are designed for you to be comfortable. But because there was this add-on Grayfield was confusing the fuck out of people, people started following not their own ideas, started chasing shiny things and etc. and they end up in those more challenging situations. But it's okay. Now that this gray field is gone, it's easier for a person to intuitively tune in what they gotta give to the world, to get some resources back, to be comfortable, so you continue your evolution. And that's where and as you keep aligning, the more you align, the more basically soul and spirit sees, wow, this person is really good at the game of evolution. Let me give them more resources. So they manage more energy. And up until the point where the gray field still existed, even though you were given energy, not all that energy converted into, let's call it, material stuff, or it was harder to convert it. Now, because gray field is gone and the V6 matrix is here, we're in a place of proportionality. What is proportionality? Proportionality is, if you can conduct 100 liters of energy, you cannot manage 1,000 liters of material wealth, because it does not proportionally match what you're capable energetically. And on top of that is reasonable sufficiency. If, as part of your incarnation program, you're supposed to host beautiful retreats to help people awaken, you can own a yacht where you can do that. But if there's no evolutionary purpose to owning a yacht, no matter what you do, you won't own a yacht. If, for example, fishing gives you joy, you'll have a fishing boat that you'll go out on and fish, and it will give you joy, like genuine joy, if it's truly part of your energetic mix. But there's no point of thinking of the yacht. So everything is coming to proportionality and reasonable sufficiency. And by coming to that, I mean, it has already happened energetically. Like, it's there. Now we're just watching the movie play out in the material world. That's why the global financial crisis is breathing into our neck. That's why the oil-based civilization is falling apart. We're basically right now have entered the time where everything will be reallocated. So those people who thought they will never be poor because they're sitting directly on the oil tap will become some of the poorest people. Those people who thought they've accumulated billions in their bank accounts, and they've done it in some of the ways I've described that are not aligned, will not have any of those billions. And the idea could be as simple as, like, we don't know how the matrix will play it out, but most of the money is digital. A stronger solar flare takes out, let's say, 70% of data centers on the planet. How many zeros did you have on your bank account? Nobody knows. You cannot prove to anyone anything. Like, you had it, you don't have it. And you can go and talk to a guy who grows cucumbers. Oh, I had 9 zeros on my screen. Can you give me a cucumber? I was like, no, what do you have for me in exchange? I don't care for your zeros that are zeros now, and the device doesn't even work. Like, it's like, let's call it an extreme version of what can unfold, but there's so many ways it can unfold. One, for example, that we're watching front row seats is AI. AI is such a beautiful industry because it's such a fractal expression of the gray field. It's eating so much capital. It has so much gravity. It's attracting so many people who love to dominate, control, be at the top. All these peasants will be my peasants, because I will have this super intelligence. So it's attracting like trillions of dollars of capital. It's attracting all these people just to chew them up and spit them out with nothing left, because it's just consuming all that energy. And the number of people who realize that we're in an AI bubble, like you don't need to be a financial genius to see that the numbers do not make any sense.
Oh yeah.
And the cracks are already like so obvious are there. So if you think about it, attract, it's like a black hole, like capital, people, no, all that capital has disappeared to the data centers that were built not completed, to crazy salaries paying $100 million to a researcher to join your company. Like it's gone. And once that tips, that could be, well, that's one of the ways, the beginning of global recession. Another way, Trump might restart Iran war. They're now saying there's 600,000 troops around Baghdad and they want to do like a ground invasion or something like that. Like, it doesn't matter. The Matrix has so many ways to pop the bubble. And as that bubble pops, it's going to majorly pop. Like, it's like Great Depression, maybe even more intense. So whoever is holding, I don't know, like 10 billion in assets, and they're properly allocated across all the portfolios, bonds, stocks, real estate, precious metals, etc., irrelevant. All of those are losing 90+% of the value. It doesn't matter.
Well, I have a, since we're on the topic, I'd be just curious on your take about the SpaceX IPO, right?
It's just so bubbly. Like, it's a bubble of a bubble of a bubble, right? Like, because he literally took all the possible bubbles that existed and put them in one bubble and maxed it out. Like, that's what he's great. That's what Elon is great at, right? Like, marketing and PR and positioning. So he's done what he's great at, but like, that's just gonna implode as part of the correction, the reallocation back to proportionality and reasonable sufficiency.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. On a little different track, but in a similar vein.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about something that I had the privy of seeing yesterday when I was doing an egg run with a buddy of mine. And it got me thinking, where does pessimism or optimism play a role in the matrix? Like, does it become a determining factor in what you can do? What is going on at the soul level for the pessimistic person, and are they capable of manifesting their desires, or is optimism the thing that's necessary for that to occur?
So everybody's manifesting all the time, and that's why the time we arrived at is so exciting and dangerous at the same time. It doesn't matter, you're optimist or pessimist. Matrix is just a mirror of your inner state. So if somebody is a pessimist, previously there was a delay and buffer of your world turning into shit. Now that is gone. And since the planet became high vibration, what we've discussed previously, the energy flows much faster. So if the person holds pessimistic state, the mirror will magnify it and serve them in a material world very rapidly now. And if you're in an optimistic state, even if you're having challenges, it's an interesting opportunity for growth. It's an interesting opportunity to be adaptive. It's an interesting opportunity. Well, I guess this was not really working for me. I should look for something else if that's being taken away from out of my life. So it's right now, it's actually one of the most critical things a person can do. And it's a choice. A person can choose either be a pessimist or optimist. And it's proven with simple things. You can choose today to write gratitude journal, and basically that retrains your mind and perception to be always grateful and optimist. And it takes zero capital. You don't even need to own a notebook and a pen, because you literally don't even need to write things. You can just go through gratitude exercise. You find things you're grateful for and feel gratitude. That automatically reprograms your psyche, reprograms all your neural networks in your brain, and you become optimist, and your inner state becomes more positive. You start up attracting, you start manifesting, you're creating a world that is positive. And that is what's happening right now, what is in spiritual world called separation, Right now, the planet is going through separation of people who are in high vibration or low vibration. Pessimists, in other words, is a simple name for low vibration people. Optimist is a word for high vibration people. And by the way, there could be an optimist still operating on low vibration, but at least that optimistic state will pull them out into high vibration. And they're a pessimist in high vibration, and now will just faster drag them down, or they would have to absolve themselves of that, get rid of that leftovers of pessimists so they can stay or continue growing in a vibration. So it's a choice. In a nutshell, it's a choice. That choice was substantially harder to make when the Grayfield existed on the planet, because it constantly, like a radio. Think of it as have you been to a Muslim country where there was a prayer?
Just Turkey, yeah, Turkey.
The prayer, like either you're part of a religion or not, it starts on a specific time of the day and the prayer is on. You like it or not. Like my parents live in Turkey, right? And like at 5 a.m., the village prayer gets on. They don't care if you're asleep or not, and it's loud, and you will hear it.
Yeah,
and it's on, right? So it's very like imposing, and that's how the Grayfield was. Think of that prayer that was going with like all these values: compete, scarcity, dominate, was happening all the time. Now that that speakerphone is off, it's gone. So where I'm going with this, now it's especially easier to make a choice to be an optimist. Previously, there was the prayer, per se, to the, or that all the waves, all the radio waves were occupied: dominate, compete, this is a hard life, you gotta suffer, you gotta win, blah, blah, blah. Now that background noise is gone, so if you cannot, without that background noise, if you cannot make a choice towards optimism, that's also a choice to stay pessimism. You're just not sticking around on this planet much longer, and that's fine. The soul gets out of the body and reincarnates in a lower vibrational part of the universe for that person to continue playing the games of scarcity, domination, competition, and etc. It's continuation of evolution or degradation. There is a vector where, and everybody has a choice all the time.
Tell me just real quick about this Grayfield change, update, dissolution. Yeah. How would you call it?
Yeah. So Matrix V5, over Matrix V5, there was an add-on part of the operating system that was installed. Like, let's call it an update package to an operating system. And it introduced values of another universe, which is programmed in a hierarchical way, where the top takes all the energy from all the layers at the bottom. So hence the values that, because think of it, the most fundamental level of universe is energy, but energy has parameters or aspects to it. It's not just same as light. Light can be blue, red, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a parameter. So energy as it flows has a parameter. It has meaning. So it distributes its meaning. So this Grayfield is just the energy with a specific meaning that got to our universe from another universe and started spreading here. And it's like infection. It was an infection because it was incongruent with the creator's parameters. Our creator's parameters are universal laws: protect life and life's evolution. Contract is important. You don't break the contract. Matrix will always enforce the contract. Whatever you put out, you receive. That energy had different parameters. So in this universe, we would call it infection. But in a grander scheme, if we zoom out to where all the universes are, it's just different type of energy. To us, it's perceived as infection. On a grander scale, the further we zoom out, it's just different flavor. So this energy was spreading, and this energy is what we called Grayfield, was trying to reprogram our universe to other parameters or other values. And the values are hierarchical structure, top gets most of the energy, hence dominate, scarcity, compete, and etc. And in that universe, or in those parameters or that energy, the whole concept, life is weak and needs to be managed and controlled because they don't want to take responsibility for their life. And if you don't want to take responsibility for your life, I'll, as a dominant, wherever I sit in that hierarchy, will take responsibility for you, but you'll give away most of the energy to me. Because I'm taking responsibility for your life, because you're not willing to become independent life. You're not willing to become sovereign life. Okay, that's fine. I'll manage you. Go dig a hole. Oh, I don't want to go dig a hole. Well, I'm not going to feed you, so go dig a hole. Okay, fine, I'll dig a hole. So now that life is digging a hole, doesn't understand why, but telling like, okay, here's some bread. Okay, now go, I don't know, kill someone. I don't want to kill someone. Well, I'm not going to give you energy. So, okay, fine. I need energy. I need to eat. Go kill somebody. And our universe is programmed all about sovereignty. Everyone is a creator. Everyone is a particle of creator. So everyone can be sovereign. And as long as they take responsibility for their life. But part of that sovereignty doesn't mean it's chaos. Like every particle has purpose, what we've discussed in previous episodes. If you're a cell of a liver, you don't try to be a cell of a muscle, because the creator created you with a purpose. So the sovereignty is really taking responsibility for who you are, how you program. And by the way, if you're like in the body, a liver cell, that means you have all the necessary tools to process toxins and etc. And maybe you shouldn't be part of a muscle somewhere in your leg because you don't have all the tools to be the right muscle, right?
Yeah.
So that's sovereignty. So it's not like, oh, we're a bunch of particles or of God and we're doing random things. No, everybody has a purpose, but we're in this. The hierarchy still exists, but the values are different. So, like for example, the particle that is closest to creator energetically ranks higher than, like, let's say, a being here on this planet, right? But it does not try to take sovereignty of the other particle. It's like, you live your life your way, you have free will and etc. Yes, energetically I'm bigger, I conduct more energy and etc. But I fully respect you and we're equal, even though we're not, like, let's say, we're different in size. So everybody has a right to be sovereign, independent, have free will and etc. Nobody needs to be managed. And if you don't want to be aligned with this, and you want to introduce chaos into a system, then the immune system activates. Somebody will come and either realign you or will destroy you, because that breaks this harmony where everybody can be sovereign and dependent, live spectacular life. Nobody needs to be dominated. So yeah, like two hierarchies completely different. One is all about energy to the top and dominate by taking energy, dominate, assemble energy, versus here, I'm at the top. I'm actually distributing energy to whoever is below me to give them even more sovereignty. That's how our universe is built. Creator, what spirit, we talked about mind, soul, and spirit. Spirit is the closest part of us to the creator, to the absolute, to God, that brings energy all the way here. So this being, Nikolai, learns to be sovereign and live a happy life. Spirit gives energy. So it's actually the opposite. The energy flows, versus here, the top's trying to collect from all the layers to the top. Here, it's completely flipped. The top has so much energy because it is in such a harmony that is like exploding with unlimited amounts of energy. So it sends it down and chooses to send more and more energy to the particles like Nikolai, who figured out how to live a harmonious life, who learned to be sovereign, who learned to take responsibility for their life. Oh, wow, this person wants to be sovereign. So this person is godlike. So this person is like me, like absolute. And I love those because I want more of these particles to be like me, more energy to them. So it's like the hierarchy is still there, but the flow of energy and the values are completely different.
Got it. So when you're looking at people, right, and you're trying to sort of ascertain what their purpose is or what would align with them, right? And And when you ask somebody, okay, well, look back, when you were younger, or
Yeah.
what excited you as a child, or
Yeah.
you're trying to find like where their
Where the
happiness
happiness
vector
was
is,
then. Yeah.
right?
Joy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when someone believes that nothing made them happy as a kid, when you're seeking or trying to find out
Yeah.
what alignment could look like, where are they blocking themselves from seeing the options or seeing the truth about their lives? Because some people can say, oh, I was never happy as a kid, or and there's a falseness to it, right?
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
they blocking themselves from being able to see, like, potential, right? Like how can they expand their thinking so that all things become possible?
Well, side note, first of all, there are people who were not happy, and to just there are a bunch of people on this planet who don't have souls. They have no connection. They experience pleasure, but they never experience energy flowing through their body, which is ultimately happiness, where every cell in the body is smiling. So there
Mm,
are people who didn't have that experience. So let's not try to, turn apples into oranges.
okay.
Um, but then there are people who chose to be pessimistic. And rather than trying to weed out from them memory of that experience where they were truly happy, easier to start with reprogramming today and say, hey, do 21 days of gratitude journal. And then their neural network in their brain reprograms to seek happy. They'll start remembering all the happy moments. Because when it's extremely pessimistic, the radar that exists, our scanner, our attention, when it's extremely pessimistic, it only sees negative things. 21 days of gratitude completely reprograms that radar. Completely. They start seeing all the positive moments that they were not seeing. They start remembering, wow, in childhood I had this moment, and teenage I had this and that. It's just the neural network that is looking for high vibrational energy hasn't been used or walked, so it's rusty. So it's very difficult to access it. And so rather than giving them exercise that seem impossible, hey, like use the rusty skill, like, hey, go ski when you haven't skied. Here's an advanced trail and go ski. And you haven't skied for 30 years, right? And like the
Yeah.
technology of skis changed. So start them slowly as like, hey, just find what you're grateful for today. And I was like, wow, I was really grateful for that lunch. That fish that they made in a restaurant was so tasty, super simple. And you like get the rust off, oil the machine, and you're like, wow, I had so many positive moments in my life. How did I forget them?
Okay. And why specifically uh 21 days? I'm always curious because, like, in it seems in so many areas, like, even, when you do the constellation
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
it's 21 days don't discuss the thing. Why, what happens with the number 21 on this spiritual level?
21 days is the cycle that the matrix runs on. That's as simple as that.
Okay.
So, like when you change something within you, it takes 21 days for the matrix to reassemble the image in the mirror. So, when we look in a mirror in a washroom, the image changes right away. Whereas the matrix, as being mirror of our inner state, is delayed by up to 21 days because matrix is managing a hologram that we perceive as material world. And given the rules that were programmed, material world is not fast to move per se, but in reality, it can change like this. But that's how the matrix was programmed. And by the way, we'll see changes to that as well as as we we go deeper in Matrix V6. The material world per se will be more malleable. So hence, up to 21 days. When you do it 21 days, your everything rewires. It's enough energy for things to rewire, to create a new habit. It's enough energy for you to become a new version of yourself and the external world to reflect it back to you.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Totally
Because
makes
it's
sense.
really in 21 days, it's only the first day that starts reflecting, right? The next day, It's 21 days again, right? So the first day somebody does gratitude practice, you've pulled in energy of gratitude. So the matrix needs to reflect. So now it's up to 21 days for the world, external world, to show this to you and to reinforce it. So now when you do it for 21 days, you set up this chain of events where now every day you'll be experiencing positive energy reflected back to you.
Got it. All right, brother. Well, that's it for this week, at least from me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so fascinating just to see how we can shift that pessimism towards optimism just by using gratitude. I got to start getting more on the gratitude practice. I've been on everything else. I've been on the meditation. I'm letting go of stuff. Gratitude is the one, and I don't know why because I don't know if I say I forget or like there's like a little, not even like I wouldn't call it a block, like another word that I would use
Part
for it,
of
but
you is making that choice. What you can do is ask, what part of me is making such choice? And I'll
okay.
throw in even more interesting question. What part of me is not loving me? Because
Ooh,
clearly, if you're not, you know how much value it will create. There is extensive research. We chat
yeah,
about it. You've heard it from
yeah,
other places. So there is a part of you that makes choice not to love you.
yeah,
Because knowing that this is your life going to be so spectacular, and given that we assume all of us love ourselves,
yeah,
right? So which part is it still not? Why are you not loving yourself, right? Because this can really give another quantum leap for your day-to-day life, for your joy, for your happiness, and etc.
yeah. That's a good reframe. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
And
And mhm.
do you do it before bed? Is that the optimum time?
Yes, and that's what I wanted to touch on. Highly recommend doing this. If you're only going to do it once a day, do it before bed, because daily matrix restarts at night. And if you're going into sleep in a high vibrational state, which is state of gratitude, your next day is going to be much more favorable. So the mirror kind of, okay, there's 21 days to rebuild bunch of theatrical set of your life. That's like a big matrix cycle. There are multiple. There is like every night matrix restarts, 21 days. There's 90 days. There are different, let's call them cycles. So we operate for now, for the purpose of this discussion, focus on a daily one. If you do it before bed, you fall asleep in a high vibrational state. Matrix scans you at night. Wow, this person is high vibration. We got to give them a mirror of that for the upcoming day. Like grand theatrical set might not shift as much, but a cashier will be super nice to you at the store. A friend will send you a nice message. The small things already start showing up. So that's why it's so powerful. And the next powerful time is doing it in the morning, because you just reinforce that state. So you go into, because after sleep, there are a bunch of things could have happened at night, like some processing of low vibrational energy, and you might wake up and the energy is still processing. So the body might feel it, and it's like, the life sucks. So that's another way to pull yourself out again and reinforce that state. So when I did it extensively for multiple years, before bed and in the morning. And like I will also include, we previously included the link to 5-minute journal, which is if somebody likes physical journals, and they have an app as well. I use that journal, and I finished many of them, and I think I shared in my last company, we bought hundreds of those, and anyone we hired, we gifted them that journal, so they start on that practice. And so I've seen many data points. Like I've seen so many people on my team who've done that. So it's like, yes, there is research, but I've done my own research, and it's real. I've done it
Yeah.
on me, and I've done it on many other people. It's like one of the highest impact things the person can do with investment close to zero, exception of them choosing of doing it. And like, for example, in the beginning, I was using the journal. Okay, the journal costed $20 or something. Then I was just doing it in my mind. The key thing there is really feeling genuinely the gratitude. It's like, and that's what I would do. I would bring up today, let's say, today, I had a great chat with Maxime. And I was like, oh, that's such a fun conversation. We joked around, we had some great insights, and I feel this gratitude to this part of the day, to this event, to the person, and etc. So, and that's what I was doing. Like I started with written journal, and then I just transitioned to really visualizing, remembering and visualizing and feeling. And then it became even easier. I would lie down in bed before I fall asleep. I would like super easy. It takes like 60 to 90 seconds to go through 3 events. And I did it a little bit more advanced. If somebody's interested to do a more advanced version of the practice, um, the easy practice is do 3 things you're grateful for from today. And if you're doing it in the morning, the day hasn't happened, you can just do generally from life. What I did was 6 things, 3 big things, and 3 very like rudimentary tiny things, because then it really trains you to look for small things in life that you're actually grateful for. Like I'll give you an example. So for example, conversation with Maxime, it's like a bigger thing. It's an interaction with somebody, it's like, let's call it a bigger event. Then like another bigger thing is like, oh, well, I'm really grateful for apartment I'm living in. It's beautiful, stunning views, etc. The more basic thing, I was like, wow, that toothbrush that I bought on Temu is really nice. It keeps my teeth white, healthy, and etc. Tiny thing that you would never think about, right? Or like, oh, the glass of water I drank while I was sitting outside and it was hot, and the sparkling water cold was so enjoyable, and it has a little bit of a salty taste to it. Wow, so grateful for this. I think a Bosnian or Serbian brand called Kisiljak or whatever it is, right? And I'm so grateful for this company, like, bottling this water and bringing it to me in Montenegro. So I would do 3 bigger ones and 3 tiny ones, like really seek out tiny things.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to implement this. The time is now.
The time is now. Make a choice to
Time is
love
now.
yourself today, right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All
Okay,
right.
till the next
Well,
one.
that's it. I will see you next week. Same time, same matrix.
See you soon.